Hi everybody. I'm just thought I would talk a little bit about my tarot table before we get started. This will get posted, and so I just wanted to give you a little bit of a tour. This is the tarot table that I use for my remote readings. If you request a reading from me, this is what you'll see, is this table. I usually do it from a bird's eye view down so that you get a good look of the spread and the cards as I work with them. But I thought I would do it a little differently this time, given that we're doing a live broadcast on Facebook. I just wanted to go over some of the things that I have here. I don't normally explain that during my sessions, and so I thought this might be a good time to do that since it's being posted on my page afterwards. People could check it out then. And then we'll do some live readings as well for those who are interested. So let me just change my view here so I can show you. Okay, so this is my tarot table. The way that I have it set up is I keep my cards on this side and I do my spreads and readings on this side of the table. So you can see I have more than just tarot decks. I have crystals that help me with focus. I have an incense that's usually burning and not really showing up. Incense that's usually burning. I have special herbs that I can use to create more activity within myself, get my brain more active. And I have a singing bowl. I use this singing bowl each and every time that I start my readings. I just give the area a little bit of a cleanse. It has a beautiful sound to it. I can show you. I love these singing bowls. I have many of them around my house. And then I have my runes, my rune bags, because I do rune readings as well. And then I have a scrying stone that I use just to get myself, catch myself internally, and the crystal ball. Now the crystal ball is mostly used for my own focus. It's the way that I stay very objective during my readings. If I didn't remain objective, my own thoughts, my own personal thoughts and my own personal feelings would interfere with the readings that I give. And so this helps me keep that focus. I can sort of ignore my own thoughts and feelings as I'm giving readings. And that is very helpful in a sense that I am picking up the messages of the cards only, and that my own thoughts and feelings are not interfering with those messages that I receive. And then you can see the amount of decks that I have. So I use all of these decks in my readings. Not always each one in every reading, but I can explain. Usually in my readings, I will start with this deck. Oh, another thing I should mention are these little crystals. This is my own personal way of recharging my cards. I use these crystals. Every deck has its own crystal. And when I'm done with the deck, I will shuffle, thank the deck, and place it down and recharge it with these crystals. So this deck I use in every reading that I do. This is the very first deck that I got when it was given to me when I was 12 years old, and I started doing readings with this deck when I was 15 years old. And I just have a really deep relationship with this deck. And I will do a one card draw with this deck in order to just get a sense of the other person that I'm connecting with. It usually gives me enough information that I can continue on with the reading, and then I will continue on the reading with this deck. This deck is the Morgan Greer deck, and I find it very useful to give deck readings to others. This deck I will use for my own personal self-readings, but this deck I use to give readings to others. So when I do the one card draw, I'm getting my own sense of the other person, and when I'm using this deck, I'm getting messages from their reading, a sense from them to give them the messages from the cards. when I've done a reading with this deck, I can then expand on that reading with any of the oracle cards that you see here. Now, not all of these decks are oracle specific. This deck, and this deck, these three here, are actual tarot or oracle. So what I mean by that is a tarot deck has a specific structure. It has 4 suits and it has several higher arcana cards. The lower arcana cards are the suits, and the higher arcana cards are any card that doesn't have like a wand, a staff, or a blade or a sword or a pentacle or a coin or what am I forgetting? the cup or the water. This deck is done through elements. This deck is done through direction, and this deck is done through elements as well. And so even though they have different structures to them, the main structure of it is of a tarot deck, whereas the rest of them here are simply specific to oracles, which means they don't necessarily have the same structure to them. There's many different ways that each deck is set up, and different number of cards and different meanings. So I just thought that that might be helpful when I'm giving readings to others. Sometimes there might be a sense of like, what is everything here on my deck or on my tarot table? And so yeah, I thought I would just start that way. I can see that no one's really here yet, and so I can start by just doing a general reading. Perhaps I'll do one for myself, and as people join, maybe they could let me know in the comments if they were interested in a reading. So as I said, my first deck is it's the deck that I have for the longest, and it's the Rider Wyatt Smith deck. So this is more of the traditional tarot deck, the more recognized imagery to it. This is the more popular tarot deck that's used. There's many different decks, and I'll just explain some of the other decks that I have while we wait for anyone who'd like to join. But in this deck, as you can see, it has the typical structure with the pentacles, that's the higher arcana, the swords, the higher arcana, the cups, and the wands. The Morgan Greer deck that I mentioned earlier is this exact same structure with the same imagery, but the art is just updated. It looks nicer, it's calmer to look at. As you can see, it has the swords, the cups, the wands, and the pentacles. And they just look nicer. They're more up to date. And then this is my Zen deck. And this deck has very modern looking imagery. It does have a structure to it. You can see on the very bottom it has a symbol, a color to it, and the color represents the different elements. So red would be fire, blue would be water, the green one, I believe it's green, would be air, and then the rainbow ones is earth. So earth matches the pentacles, the air matches the swords, the fire matches the wands, and the last one, the blue matches the cups, so water would match the cups. So, and this is an amazing oracle deck. Just, I mean, it gives amazing advice. Anytime that I feel stuck or I feel like I need that extra oomph for advice, especially if a reading doesn't quite narrow down what I'm looking for in the reading. Like if I have a question and it kind of leaves it general, or sometimes a reading will give you exactly what you already know. And that can mean that you're on the right path, that there really isn't any other messages that need to come out, but it confirms for you exactly what you should be doing. And so I like to use this deck when that happens to get advice moving forward. This deck also has a tarot structure to it. This is my Ancient Wisdom deck, also known as Witch's Wisdom, and it has just an image and a description similar to the Zen deck. Most of these are reversed because I do work with reversal meanings. So you can see and this deck uses elements. So this deck has water, air, it has fire, and earth. And so the images are really about, like you can see here, the two of air. And it's really about connecting with nature. The tree kind of looks like lungs. It's about creating that partnership with nature. This is about consequences, so the three of water. You can see that, you know, the reflection in the water is very drastically different from what is being reflected. And then I can show you my pagan deck. Now this deck is kind of cool because it has updated imagery and it just shows like pagan rituals in it. It also shows pagan beliefs and belief structure, and then it mixes it in with these modern sort of, you know, like for example the Four of Swords. Really the Four of Swords in most tarot decks are about withdrawing, kind of going within, and so you can sort of see that in the imagery of a person laying on their bed, kind of, you know, thinking off. Obviously she's withdrawn, going within in the imagery. And you know, it's just a lovely deck. This deck gives good advice. It really digs deep. A lot of times this deck is very to the point. It just delivers its messages. It's almost in your face. Then I can show you this deck. Now this deck was created by a very talented numerologist and tarot reader that I've been really privileged to meet in person. Her name is Lindsay Knight, and she owns the Ninth Vibration, and she just does this extraordinary deck. It's really intuitive. It's just an image and a number. It's not really a tarot structure. It's sort of a an oracle type deck, and it just hammers home the thoughts of the reading and the messages of the reading. Now this deck is mainly for past experiences, and so it not only can speak to past experiences in this life, but it speaks to past experiences in a previous life as well. So I really like depending on this deck when I've done a full reading for somebody, and this can be helpful to examine sort of those how past experiences can affect your actions today, especially if you're going through something really traumatic and you don't understand why it's traumatic for you. The example that I like to give is if somebody was afraid of water and they never really understood why they were afraid of water and they couldn't really go swimming or learn to swim because of it, this deck may symbolize that perhaps, you know, you've drowned in a previous life, or perhaps when you were younger you had an experience near water. And I find that examining those past experiences can help you understand what you're going through today. And so that's where this deck really comes in handy, and it just points out the relevant past experiences. This deck has never proven me wrong. Anytime that I use this deck in my readings, that's usually, you know, people connect with it right away. Another deck that was designed by the same person, Lizzie Knight, is the Emotional Triggers deck. Now this deck is really about examining emotions. It's very similar, with similar imagery to the deck that I just showed you, but it's more meant for examining emotions, you know, like the crossroads, someone who has a lot of direction to go in, or a lot of choices to make. Which way are you going to go? I could go through and explain every card, but I think that would make this video even more boring. But what I want to explain with these decks is just how I use them within my readings. And so with this deck, if I have an emotional reading, the messages that come from my main reading really affected someone emotionally, or they feel like they're very emotional about the topic that they're discussing or that I'm reading them on, then this deck is a really good resource to point out and examine those emotions. A lot of times I'll just do a 3-card draw from this deck, and it will just hammer home a lot of the emotional triggers or emotional activators that someone is experiencing. And then sometimes that can be helpful to examine that. Knowing why you're being triggered emotionally can really bring a lot of understanding. And my Life's Path deck. So Life Path deck, this deck really speaks to the life path that we're on. A lot of times these are also an intuitive deck, and it just has a number and a little phrase or saying or word on the bottom. And this deck can be extremely helpful for somebody who doesn't understand why something is happening. If the reading is very accurate and it explains the path that someone is on, and they're like, why is this happening to me? I will sometimes suggest that we go through this deck. I will draw 1 to 3 cards from this deck as an oracle to expand on the reading that I'm doing. And it just really, I've never had anyone tell me that it was wrong. The imagery, they usually connect with the imagery. I've even had people tell me that they've had dreams about the image in the deck that has come up. And it just makes so much sense to them as to the life path that they're on. And then that helps them to understand more clearly why they're going through the experiences that they are. Sometimes experiences that are negative are meaningful. A negative experience that you may be going through can also be, can lead you in the right direction. Sometimes there are lessons, life lessons, that need to be learned in this life that you may not have learned in a previous life. Or if anyone is familiar with the term of soul contracts, you know, a contract can be created for our souls to go through so that when they're reincarnated back into this life, they can follow through with that lesson to be learned. And then the last deck, or the second last deck, that I'm going to show you is this deck. And this deck is the Witch's Wisdom Oracle. and it just has an image and two phrases, one on the top, one on the bottom. One phrase being either a direction, a time of year, or a celebration, or a ritual, or and then the bottom has like a little inspirational meaning to it. And this deck is really good if I'm doing a reading for another magical practitioner, for example. This deck can be really good to do for just getting a sense of what to do from here, or how to achieve a certain objective. Sometimes a full reading can explain what's happening for you. It can explain how you're feeling, what you're going through. It can even give advice for how to move forward. But then people often, or sometimes, will ask, well, how do I do that? Like, I know what direction I have to go in, but how do I get started? And so this deck can be really good to explain that. It just gives some direction on what to do. Sometimes if I'm looking at designing a ritual, for example, I can turn to this deck and get some advice on how to get started, what should be included in the ritual, etc. And so sometimes that can be very helpful. And the last deck I want to show you is the Moonology Oracle. Now, this deck is great for time frames. It's great for, it involves zodiac, it involves moon phases. It really is helpful. A lot of times, if you have a time frame that you wonder how long it's going to take for something to happen, I can turn to this deck and it will give like the moon phase or the time of year, or sort of the time frame that's involved in whatever the other reading was about. Again, all of these cards expand on my readings, and so depending on the question of my querent, as the person I'm reading for, will depend on which deck I will suggest that they use for advice, in the same way that I do with spreads. Sometimes when someone comes up to me for a reading and they say, oh, I have a question that I want to present to the cards, I'd like you to do a reading on, and it involves this sort of situation that has challenges in it, and so I will do a dilemma spread, which a dilemma spread really focuses on how people are affected by a certain challenge or situation, and I can go through that dilemma. And the dilemma spread is really helpful in the sense that it not only explains the dilemma that people are going through, it gives advice towards that dilemma, and then it also offers either an action or a tool that can be used to follow the advice in order to tackle that dilemma. Or if someone said to me that they just wanted a general reading, then I would do a full spread. Usually I suggest a Crook's spread, which means that it's shaped like a Celtic cross, and it can be helpful because it looks at what the subject of the reading is, what works against the subject, what grounds the person in the reading, what comes from the past, what may come to future, what will come to happen. And then it also focuses on their hopes, what opinions are that are close to them in their lives, and then their fears. And then it also gives a path conclusion. Now, a path conclusion in spreads kind of gives a path of the path that they've taken to get to the conclusion of the reading. Just because there's a long path doesn't mean that you have that long path to go through. Sometimes people are anywhere on that path as it's dealt out. So if there was a path that came out with 7 cards, the first 3 might make sense, and then the last 4 are yet to come, and so you're sort of almost halfway through the path to get there. whereas other times, excuse me, other times they could be at the end of the path, and so every card that came out in the path makes sense, and they can see the path as it unfolded leading up to now. There are times when only the first card makes sense, and then the rest of the cards in the path are what to be expected moving forward. And so there's different ways to do the readings. There's different spreads to do the reading. And I really try to suggest to people as they approach me what is the best, layout, what's the best cards to use, depending on their dilemma. Now, I do have some who come up to me and they say, I'm not saying anything, I would just like a general reading. And so I will do a full spread on that, and whatever comes out, we discuss it. And 9 times out of 10 people are like, yes, it's totally making sense and helpful. And sometimes the messages that come out in the cards makes more sense to them than it does to me. I mean, I'm really just the interpreter in the reading. How you associate the messages to your life is where you create new perspectives and where you gain that insight. And that's really where tarot readings can become most helpful. I see I have some viewers, so if anyone's interested in receiving a free reading, just let me know in the comments. Just write interested, and I will I'll start those free readings. I think what I'd like to do is just do a sample reading, and in the meantime, just to show you a sample on how I do readings. I can do a self-reading, and I'm going to use my trusted tarot deck, my Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and then I will continue the reading with the Morgan Greer deck to give you an example or to show you how like a reading would be done. Now I'll need to change my camera angle because you can't see where I'm doing the actual cards here. So I'll bring you off to the side here. Excuse the jumping around. Okay, so and any time that a card jumps out like that, it's usually a message that needs to be delivered. And so I feel like I need to deliver this to myself. And what it's saying is that it came out reversed, and it's the Six of Wands, or the Six of Wands is really about championing yourself. Normally the card looks like this, and it means sort of championing yourself, being confident, really believing in yourself, and wands are about action. And so as you can see from the image, this person is almost like parading their action, and there's all these other actions behind them that may be different or supporting them. And mine's reversed. And so what that's telling me is that I may not be totally championing what I'm trying to do here. It may be a little rough on the edges, and I don't have a lot of people really backing me up right now, and that makes total sense to me, given that I don't have very many viewers right now. It's kind of funny, but that's really where I'm sitting right now, and so that makes sense to me. I'm gonna that would be the first card that I came out, and that's my impression that I'm going to move forward with this reading. So I'd like to show you what a full spread would look like. And so I'm just going to shuffle the deck. And anytime that I shuffle the deck, I just shuffle until I feel like I should stop. Like, it's really about my intuition. And when I intuitively feel I should stop, which is now, and then I'm going to cut the deck. I only cut the deck once for myself. I'll cut the deck 3 times for others. So again, what came out is the 7 of Wands reversed. And so the subject of this reading, what this is telling me is that it's not that someone is taking something from me or that this is like not heavy on my shoulders. This is not heavy on me. These swords represent thoughts, and you can see from the image, if I hold it this way, if it came out this way, I would think that this is heavy. I have a lot on my shoulders, perhaps even feeling like that it's being taken from me to do, that it is heavy on me. But because it's reversed, it's really telling me that that this is not weighing me down, that this this isn't like hard work, it's not stressful for me. Now what works against me in this reading is the King of Pentacles reversed. And so because it's reversed, kings represent sort of making the best decisions for others, caring for others, and it's reversed, and pentacles represent either money or health. And so this is telling me that if I'm not making the best decisions for myself in this, that works against this being easy for me. So I need to really be more clear. I need to be more focused, perhaps. And that these two cards together really represent a sort of a struggle. And they're both reversed, which also says to me that this is sort of a struggle. And, I totally accept that. I struggle with being in front of the camera, to be honest. I get nervous. I maybe appear a little awkward, perhaps. And so this totally makes sense to me in the way that it's coming out. What grounds me in this reading is the Six of Swords. Now, swords represent thoughts and intellect, and this card really is about sort of escaping, taking what you have and going, maybe starting something new. And so what grounds me in this is I really just need to let my thoughts go. I really need to, like all of this is suggesting, I need to be more focused. I need to not depend on the past. I need to move forward. And what comes from my past to now is the Ace of Swords. Now, as I said, swords represent thoughts and intellect, and the Ace of Swords is sort of like a new thought, a new idea. And so in the past, I've had this new idea coming to now. I decided to do live broadcasts. This is only my second one. And so in my other broadcast, I really just talked about myself. I gave some background information, and then I had some people who were interested in doing some free readings. That was a really good start for me. And so I really see this as representing, this new idea that I had to move forward. What may come to being is sort of this unhappiness. Normally, if the card presented like this is the Ten of Cups, it would represent sort of bliss or like full happiness, and it's came out this way. And I can relate to that. I'm not so happy with the way that I present in these videos. I really don't do it for my own gain. I do it for just to share my knowledge in tarot for others. And I really, I enjoy giving tarot readings. I enjoy helping others. I enjoy seeing the connections that get made, the insight that people take from it, the new perspectives that are gained from it. A lot of times there's closure in the way that I give tarot readings and to others, and that helping others is really why I do it. And so I really think that I could probably be less nervous. I could be more engaging in these live sessions, and so I'm not really happy with the way that they turn out yet, but I'm working on it, and the only way that I can work on it is to practice and give them. And then what will come to terms is the Four of Wands. Now this represents happy home. This represents happy structure. It did come out this way. It wasn't reversed the way that it landed in the spread. And so that says to me that I'm getting there, and I will get there. I will be happy with the way that I am doing these live broadcasts. It's just, I think there's a progression here. I mean, that's really what this says to me, that there's a progression. So that's the main part of the crooks spread. The reason why it's called a crooks spread is because crooks means cross, and so a Celtic cross specifically. And so there's the cross, and then there's usually a longer piece that comes down, and I'm going to do that off to the side. And I've run out of room already. I'm just going to move these over without them falling off the table. So the next 3 cards that I'm going to place here are my fears. The next card is my fears, and then I'll do my opinions of friends and family, and then I'll do my hopes. So what came out in my fear for this is the reversal of the 5 of Cups. Now normally the card looks like this, and it represents a loss, sort of imagining what could be. You know, the guy has, in the image, he has his cups here that he's got behind him protecting him, and then he's pondering and looking at what's been spilled. This is really a card of loss. And so my hope, or my fear in this, my fear position is not loss. I think that I worry that I think what this says to me is I don't want others to feel loss in what I'm giving. You know, people may be watching this and they may be disappointed. They may think, oh, you know, I'm not really learning anything from this, or perhaps there's nothing to gain from it, or maybe I'm just awkward and boring. And so that would be my fear in this, and that makes sense to me. Then there's the opinion of friends and family. Now, this can be just close friends, or it can be family that's around. It came out reversed, and it's the 8 of Pentacles. Now, normally the card looks like this, and it means like getting down to work, or that there's a lot of work to do. And because it's reversed, it's telling me, and because it's in the friends and family opinion spot, it's really telling me that, you know, people probably think that I'm not working hard, or that I'm, maybe I should do something else. Maybe I need to get a real job. You know, and that does make sense to me. I mean, not everyone supports what I do that are close to me. Not everyone supports me giving tarot readings. They think it's sort of a little woo-woo, you know, just not, they don't believe in it, or they don't believe that it's a way of connecting with people. Some people don't believe it's a proper way of making money, even. And then my hopes. And what I hope, and this card makes total sense to me, this is the 3 of Pentacles, and it's the student card. So my hope in this, what this is telling me, is that I hope to learn. I hope to get better. I hope to advance in what I'm doing with these live broadcasts, because that's really the focus that I had when I shuffled and dealt this spread, was what's, you know, with these live broadcasts that I'm doing, you know, what was the reading on that. And I really feel like that this really connected well with this. I need to learn more about staying calm, about not being nervous, about just providing the information that I have. And, you know, if people feel like they don't appreciate or don't get anything out of it, that's okay, because I'm really doing it to help those who feel they would get something out of it, or explaining to people how I do tarot readings, so that when they get a reading from me, they know what to expect. So the next part of this spread is the path conclusion that I like to do. Now, the way that I do this to achieve a path is I will deal out cards until I reach a higher arcana card. So those are the cards that don't have suits in them. And all of these cards have suits. There hasn't been one higher arcana card laid so far. I find that really interesting. Usually the higher arcana cards are like the extra guidance from the tarot, and I didn't get a single one in my Crooks spread, which says to me that I don't have a lot of guidance in doing these live broadcasts, which again is so true. I really don't have anyone to show me what to do and what not to do. I really just started them on a whim and just, you know, did them based on my own intention. There really was no rhyme or reason other than to share with people about how I do tarot readings. And so I don't have someone guiding me through this. Maybe that would help. You know, maybe I could reach out to other people online who do live broadcasts and get advice or suggestions to make it less awkward or more appropriate, perhaps, more interesting. So I'm just going to deal out those cards, and I will explain. What I'll do is I won't go card per card, but I'll deal out the whole path until I get to a higher arcana card. That's any card that doesn't have a suit to it. And then we will analyze. Sometimes the first card that comes out is a higher arcana card, which really just means that that's the definite conclusion, that there really isn't a path leading up to it, that it just gives the guidance and the answer from there. If there are a whole lot of cards that come out, that just means that there's a long journey or path that needed to be taken to get there. And I will try and analyze where I am along that path. So 3 cards came out before I reached a higher arcana card. The higher arcana card that came out is the Justice card reversed. So I think what that's telling me as a conclusion is that I may not really find out how helpful these live broadcasts are. It's really just something that I can put out and see how it goes. Normally the card would look like this, and it would represent sort of, you know, finding that justice, feeling like things are leveled, deserved, balanced. And because it's reversed, it makes sense to me. This is sort of how I feel now. That, you know, doing these live broadcasts are a little awkward, but I enjoy doing them because I want to explain, I want to help, I want people to learn. I do spend a lot of my time teaching tarot, just because, like, a lot of times when people come to see me, I'm explaining how to do the tarot while I'm giving them the messages. And that's for anyone who wants to learn. I mean, I have my website, staffordtarot.com, where really it's a teaching tool. Excuse me. Attached to that website is a blog. And in the blog has helpful suggestions, has reading tips. There's even a featured beginner's lessons, video lessons in the blog so that people could learn for themselves. And the path that I'm taking to get there, interestingly enough, my whole path is reversed. So that tells me that this is a bit of a challenge. And the first card that came out is the Ace of Rods reversed. So that's like in action. It's like there's an action to be discovered and it's just not being discovered, or it's not being followed through with. And then there's this, the Six of Cups reversed, which normally the card looks like this, and it represents sort of childhood memories or memories from my past. And because it's reversed, it's really telling me that there were some struggling acknowledgements to my past, or that that I'm not quite connecting to those memories, or there could be something helpful that I'm missing from my past leading up to this conclusion. And so I feel like I'm at the end of this path. I feel like I've already, you know, there could be more that I could be doing. I could be using more knowledge from my past, bringing into these live broadcasts, and that I don't feel quite right about them. And so that's that's probably my own awkwardness with the broadcasts. Yeah, when I look at this reading as a whole, as I said, I don't feel like I have a lot of guidance on it. I see a whole lot of mixed suits. You know, it's pretty much equally balanced. There's 2 pentacles, there's 2 wands, there's 2 swords, there's 2 cups. And so there isn't one way to go about it. I feel like I'm probably all over the map, which, if you're watching my live broadcast, probably, yeah. That makes sense to me. And so, yeah, that's how I would do a full reading. That's an example on a very, not a very specific topic, but an example on how I would analyze a simple question like how I feel about these broadcasts. I could expand on that with one of my oracle decks, and I feel like the life path may help me out here, which is this one that I explained earlier. And so I'm just going to draw one card from this deck to see if it can give me some insight for myself in regards to this reading. Now, while I'm shuffling the oracle deck, I am keeping in mind objectively the way that this reading has turned out, sort of the messages that have come through and some of the symbolisms involved, as well as the like all over the map. I really feel like that could just be because of my own nervousness. And what came out is simplicity. You know, perhaps I'm making this way more complicated than it needs to be, and that I really just need to breathe. I need to calm myself. Maybe, you know, try not to be so complicated. Perhaps as simple as they are is perfectly fine. I don't need to go overboard. I don't need to have a big spectacle. I don't need to make it, you know, so interesting and fascinating that I get tons of viewers. That's never been my objective, and so I think that this card really speaks well to that. So at the end of every reading, and because I'm giving it to myself, I can't really do this, but at the end of every reading, I usually, you know, questions. Are there any questions about anything that's come out here? And what connects most with someone? And then we can expand on that or talk about it further. Sometimes little bits of information that people may give me can relate to the cards. And then next thing you know, they're telling me the whole story, and I can just, while they're talking, I can just point to the different ways that the spread is describing what they're talking about. I'm just thanking these cards for their guidance. And I'll put these cards away. Again, just thanking the cards for their guidance. Now that card flipped out on me here, and it was a King of Swords. And so again, when cards flip out like that, I feel like they're just messages that need to be delivered. And so the message for me here is, you know, I need to rein over my thoughts. I need to really get in control of what's my objective, you know, the way that I'm doing these live broadcasts. I really feel like I need to just be more clear, give it a bit more thought. Now, today has been an incredibly crazy day, and I was feeling so tired leading up to doing the live broadcast, but I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do it, and I'm just gonna wing it and just go from there. And so that's what I did, and I'm glad that I did. Oh, now there's 2 cards that popped out for me. And again, they just make sense to me. This is the 5 of Wands, not reversed, like it's in its original form, and it usually means that there's this battle that's been won over intellect, like an intellectual battle, and I feel like I can be triumphant over this. And the Tower card, normally it looks like this. It came out reversed. Normally the Tower looks like this, and it represents this massive change, sort of like a destructive change to move forward, and it's reversed. So I mean, I don't need to go through this drastic change to do this. I feel like I don't need to demolish the structure in order to reinvent something new. I don't have to reinvent the wheel here. I should just go with the flow. I'm just going to thank these cards for their guidance. And cards just keep popping out here. The Queen of Swords and the Queen of Wands. I mean, queens represent, for me, they represent sort of the nurturing of others, reigning and making the best decisions for others. Now, both of these popped out reversed the way that they landed. And so I could really do that with more thought and action. You know, swords represent thought, wands represent actions, and these are the 2 queens of both suits. I really feel like maybe perhaps that I'm not doing that enough, that I really should plan more, give it more thought as to what I'm going to do and the actions that I'm going to do in these live broadcasts. That's great advice for me. I think I will follow through with that moving forward, create more of a plan and a structure. Now, I have some viewers. If anyone would be interested in a tarot reading, I could do just a quick day spread. A day spread is sort of I call it the pyramid because of the way that it turns out. But I do a day spread for myself every morning, and it's never proven me wrong. In the morning of every day, I will use this deck. I will do a day spread where the first card is the past leading up to today, so the influence is leading towards today, and then the middle card is like today, and then the next card beside that, the third card that comes out, is sort of where today is leading. And then I will also do a card at the top which represents the general subject or feeling of the day. And then I will do a 5th card, which is the what works against that general feeling of today, or what works against me today. And I find that extremely helpful to analyze every morning. Like I said, I've never had it go wrong. One time it actually felt like the day was leading towards a specific person. Sometimes the kings and queens in the court deck, the court cards, can represent a specific person, and the different suits will give different qualities of that person. And so it was a pentacle king, which represents a man with either dark eyes or dark hair. And later on that day, I was given advice on where to go by somebody who had dark eyes and dark hair. And that was really, it really stood out to me, and I didn't see that coming until the day progressed, and I went through that experience and connected it with the reading that I had earlier that day. A lot of times that can happen where there's been a couple times when I do a day spread in the morning and it doesn't make any sense at all, you know, and I'm like, how is the day going to lead there? And so I will leave the spread out on my tarot table during the day. I'll go out and experience my day, and then I'll come back and I will see how the day evolved. And it's never been wrong. You know, for something that doesn't make sense in the morning, that's usually how the day turns out. And then I come back to it and I'm like, wow, that makes total sense to me. I can now connect those messages and what they meant. So a lot of times when there's messages in a tarot reading that doesn't quite make sense, I always tell people, write this down. and watch for it over the next day or two. See how this evolves, see how this makes sense. Because I've never done it where somebody said to me, you know, this was horrible, that didn't make any connection at all, and there's no way that that happens or did happen or experience. There's always been a connection. And so that's why I've really relied on tarot throughout my life. There was a point when I stopped giving readings for a period of time because I really have a strong feeling that when messages come out in the cards, I'm cutting my head off here, there we go. I really have a strong feeling that when messages come out in the cards, they need to be delivered. And it doesn't matter how hard the message is. If it needs to be delivered, then I must deliver it. And so I've had some pretty hard messages come out in cards. One time I gave a reading, I think I was 16 years old, and I gave a reading to somebody that, you know, a close friend that I cared about, and the message in the card was very hard to hear for them. They connected the messages to a very unfortunate circumstance that they had in their life, and then the conclusion of the deck reminded them of a dream they had regarding that circumstance, and they thought it was a future prediction. And they ended over the next couple years, they went through that experience that was explained to them, and it was incredibly hard. I don't want to give details, but because it was a personal, you know, experience for them. But my point being is that seeing that evolve, because they were a close friend of mine, somebody that I cared for, that it was hard for me to watch them go through the way that the reading had suggested that it would. And it took me a while to realize that, you know, we all have life paths. There are things that happen to us, good or bad, that help change who we are, help build our character, help learn the lessons that we need to learn in life. And so once I came to that conclusion, I was okay to then continue on with my readings, to give readings to others again. I never stopped them for myself, mind you, but to give readings to others again. And which is why I also have to remain very objective during my readings. And that's not me being insensitive. That's me not interfering my own feelings with the messages in the cards. I hope that makes sense. If there are any questions, feel free to post them up. Excuse me. This is being broadcast on my website as well, and so I do realize that those who are watching from my website cannot comment on. But feel free to send me an email, or there's a contact component on my website. If you want to fill out the form and send it to me, I can get back to you with an answer to your questions. Are there any questions out there for anyone who's watching on Facebook? I do have some viewers. I'm hoping that maybe somebody will interact. Otherwise, I will maybe end the broadcast a little earlier tonight. Given the advice that I got within my own reading tonight, I am going to create more of a structure for these live broadcasts. I really feel like that would be beneficial to you and the people who visit my page. And just, I'm totally happy teaching some of this rather than just presenting tarot readings. I'd be happy to share some of the knowledge that I have on tarot, the different structures that are in place. I could go over some of the layouts perhaps that I can do. A really interesting layout that I do that I don't do very often for others is the 6-month forecast. The 6-month forecast can become extremely complicated. It's a 36 card spread, and the different cards that are beside other cards can change the meanings if they're relational. And so it takes a very long time to go through a 6-month spread, which is why I don't do it very often. A lot of times I will give a 15-minute reading or a 30-minute reading. It's not very often that I'll do an hour reading for people, just because it's not so suggested. When they find out that there's quicker options, that's usually what they want to do. Even in my in-person readings, a lot of times they're half-hour readings. Just because, I mean, messages tend to come to me very quick, and I can go through the reading quite quickly, and then depending on how the insight is created, the perspectives that are being made, or that they're connecting with, will depend on how the reading goes from there. And so I don't spend a lot of time elaborating if the other person is not requesting that. I don't want to waste anyone's time. My time is worth something, and so I do charge a fee for it. And so quite often I will keep that in mind, that, you know, I don't want to overcharge, or I don't want to waste someone's time in what they've asked from me. I don't want to take advantage, I guess that's a better way of putting it. I'm very considerate in that way, and unless somebody has requested a full reading or they want multiple spreads, they have different questions they want to ask, they have different ideas that they want to present to the cards and see how it comes back, that's really the only time that I will expand beyond my half-hour readings. I should also mention as well that even though I present my readings as a time limit, I don't always stick to that time limit. It's still the same fee structure. So what I mean by that is, if someone asks me for a 15-minute reading and I know what spreads I can get through in 15 minutes, so those are the spreads that I'm going to suggest when someone asks for me for a 15-minute reading, depending on what their topic is or what their question is. And so when that happens, if it takes 20 or 25 minutes to go through that spread, I still charge that as a 15-minute reading. That's still $25. Just because that's what was asked of me. And if we get into conversation during the giving of the reading, I don't see that as being like extra fee. I don't see that as an opportunity to make more money. I'm simply providing a service. And so, like I said, I'm not taking advantage. And so the same thing for my half-hour readings. If it takes over a half an hour to get through a full reading, like the Crook's Celtic Cross spread that I gave as an example tonight, that usually takes a half an hour to get through. Sometimes I will go through it really fast because the messages are just quick and I'm just connected to the reading and I'm just giving it out. If it's below a half hour, I will expand on the reading using other decks and cards. If it goes over the half hour, I'm not charging more money for that extra time. It's simply what has been presented and the conversation as it went. And so I would still charge accordingly to the half hour, which is $50. Like I said, it's not very often that I do hour readings, which would be $100. I only have a few clients that come to me regularly, but over periods of time, like once every 3 months or quarterly in the year. They will get our readings because they have multiple questions, they have multiple things they want to check, like they might want to do a full reading to see how it turns out, and then they have a dilemma in their mind they want to present, so I'll do a dilemma spread, and then I usually will fit in a day reading for them as well, and so that takes up the time. As I said, if it goes over slightly, based on what they've asked me to do, I don't charge extra for that. It's simply within what I can do within that time frame, or what I feel I can present in that time frame. If we go over or under, it's neither here nor there for me. As I said earlier, I love giving readings out. I guess it's sort of, it's me working against myself. I have been taken advantage of in that aspect, but I would rather give free readings to people. It's like I explain to people, if I come up to you and offer you a reading, it doesn't cost. Like a lot of times someone in my life or someone that I've met and they tell me about their problems and I say, well, you know what, I'm a tarot reader, and what may be helpful is to do a tarot reading on this and see how that connects, or what insight you could get from it, or if that helps to change your perspective. I'm not going to charge for that because I'm offering the reading. Whereas if someone comes looking for me, wanting my time, and I'm not expecting it, then yes, then I'm going to schedule them into a tarot session, and they'll pay for that because they're paying for my time on that. A really good example of that is in order for me to learn not to be taken advantage of, I started doing the draws. The free draws for a free reading, I do them once a month, and it gives everyone who's interested in getting a free reading an opportunity to have a chance to get that free reading. And so I will, I literally will write down everyone's names that that has interest in a free reading, and when the time comes, I literally cut them out and I put them into a hat, and I shake the hat up and I draw a name, and that's the name of the person who gets the free reading. If I go over multiple platforms, so for example, this past draw, I just did a draw yesterday for a free reading, and I did it across 3 different platforms. I have a community app that I'm involved in for magical practitioners. I offered it to them. I offered it to Facebook, which you can see it in my events on my Facebook page. And then I offered it to a neighborhood group that I'm involved in called Next Door. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it's a great way of connecting with like people in your neighborhood and neighbors, and just just connecting with people that are around you. And so I offered it on there as well. And so I drew a name for each platform. So I'm giving out 3 free readings this month. 1 for the people who are interested on Facebook, 1 for the people who are interested on the community app, and 1 for the people that were on the neighborhood app. And so that's okay with me. I that's the way that I set up my draws. Sometimes, excuse me, if there isn't a lot of interest shown on a specific platform, then I won't necessarily offer it to that platform every month. I don't want people to get sick of hearing about me. A good example is the neighborhood app. I actually had some people come back at me. I even had a heckler one time, someone who just did not agree with tarot readers, and they were just like, they thought it was just a bunch of bull. They were not interested to hear about it, and in fact they were offended that I was offering it to others because they didn't believe in it. And that's fine for them. I had a great conversation with them about how I respect their ideas and decisions that they make. And it was very constructive in the end, that conversation. But I'm not going to offer it on a regular basis to that kind of community. But I do offer it every once in a while, and sometimes it surprises me on how many people are interested. I think in this last draw that I did yesterday, I had about 17 people involved in the draw. 8 people from one and 7 from another, and however many. And it was really interesting each time that I do it, how it results. And so I've never given up on my free readings. I still offer them out. And like I said, every once in a while I will still approach people and say, well, can I give you a reading on that? And I don't charge for it because I'm offering it to them. I found them, like it may be helpful to them. And so the ones that I charge money for are the ones where people come up to me saying, oh, I have this situation and I'd really like a reading on it. Can I make an appointment with you? those are the ones that I charge for. Again, I try to be very fair and not take advantage of people, and that has really, that's comfortable for me. I'm not in it to become well known or famous or make a lot of money. My time is worth something. I do work beyond doing tarot. Tarot isn't the only thing that I've been doing my whole life. I've had multiple different jobs, different ways of making a living. This is not my bread and butter. This is just my interest and a way that I know I can help others. I know what it provides. I know how helpful it can be. I've learned that for myself just by doing my readings every day. And so that's really what I want to offer people. And that's also why I started these live broadcasts, were to help with that perspective, help with that insight that can be gained. And anyone who wants to learn how to do tarot for themselves. I will be at a event that's coming up in June, the Pagan Fest at Niagara Falls or Niagara region. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm putting together a workshop on how to give intuitive readings, how to remain objective so that you can not have your own thoughts and emotions interfere with the messages from the cards. I'm really excited about doing that, just because I really feel like it would be very helpful information for people. Not even so much in tarot, but you know, when something happens and it blindsides you, you know, life is life, and we all go through different things in life. And I really feel like it is so helpful to be able to take a step back and look at the big picture without having the emotion and the thought process interfere with how you feel about stuff, or how you would approach certain events, or how you would really like how you view those things that can happen. I think a really good example is road rage. You know, there's been times when I'm driving and you know, I'm driving and just going where I need to go, minding my own business, and somebody will come in and they're aggressive and they cut me off perhaps, and you know, the first initial response is, you know, the anger builds up, and you suddenly start thinking these thoughts about the other person, like, oh, what a jerk, or what, what an asshole, or, you know, like they are the problem. And I take a step back. I don't usually do that because I'm able to remain objective. I take a step back and I think, okay, what's another way of looking at this? They must be having a bad day. Or what are they going through right now to be that aggressive, you know? And that has been extremely helpful to me throughout my whole life. Taking that objectiveness approach to situations can help allow you to stay clear in mind. In that road rage example, I've seen multiple times where I've been in the passenger seat and the driver that's driving the car that I'm in may get cut off, and they are just like, they want to go faster and get on the other person's tailgate, and like, you know, at that point it becomes dangerous, you know, and you really, and I'm trying to tell them, you need to take a step back, you need to think about what you're doing. I mean, your life's not the only life in jeopardy here. When I'm in the passenger seat, but also, you know, you need to have consideration for others, even in any situation. And I just feel like that is such a helpful tool to have in your back pocket, so to speak, that you can just take out and use when you need to. And it doesn't just apply to tarot, but tarot teaches all of these great skills. It shows, you know, a great, you know, not only staying objective, but quality decision making, how to analyze your situations, you know, planning and moving forward with a task or a goal. It really does teach all that. And so I just find it such a helpful tool. And it's been so helpful. I even got a deck for children so that I could teach my own kids how to use tarot. Not so that they can give readings to others, but so that they can learn those skills. They can learn that decision making and that objectiveness, and using their intuition when they need it. And it's been a progress. It's been a slow progression, but it's building. And I'm so proud of the ways that they've been able to apply it in their real life. So I hope that makes sense. If anyone has any questions whatsoever, please feel free to email me. My email is bryantarotreading@gmail.com. And if you're watching this, you know that my Facebook page is facebook.com/bryantarotreading. And also my website, bryanstafford.com. You can connect with me there as well. There's a connection tool that you fill out a form and submit it, and it comes right to my email, and I get notified and I can respond right away. I'm also connected to an app that's connected to my Facebook. You can go on, on my website. So you can go on my website, you can download the app, and you get sort of all of the blogs in one place, categorized by category. And you can send messages from there and connect with me. We can have live chats. And in there as well, there are a few that we've created some excellent conversation and some learning. And I've been mentoring some through my website on how to give tarot readings for themselves. And so if anyone's interested in any of this, please feel free to contact me in those ways. And I will continue these live broadcasts. I will, every once in a while, I think I'm going to try and do them about once a month. I don't want to do them too often. I feel like that might be getting in people's, I don't want to be in your face. Oh, Bryan went live, Bryan went live, Bryan went live. But I would like to do it occasionally, just to give some structure to my own growth. In connecting with others. I think that's the hardest thing for me as a tarot reader, is getting myself out there, to letting people know that this service is here and available, and that what it means. I mean, many people think that it's just fantasy, or that it's imaginary, or that what I'm providing is as the term goes, woo-woo. And it's, for me, it's completely not. I've never given a tarot reading where somebody said to me, no, that makes no sense to me. I didn't connect with any of that. And if they did, and they're a paying customer, I would give back a refund. And that's never happened. One of my questions at the end of every reading was this helpful? Was this helpful to you? And everyone has said, yes, actually it was. And here how it was helpful. Or that's such good advice, I'm going to move forward with that. Or now I can look at that past experience completely differently. Or I've had people say that that it's changed their whole perspective, and how grateful they are for the reading. I do have some who come back regularly. I have some regulars that they see the benefit, and they want the service on a regular basis of some kind, like once a month, or like I said, I have someone who comes every 3 months. I have someone who comes every 4 months, and it's completely up to you. It depends on what you expect to gain from the tarot reading. And sometimes what people expect to gain is not what they get. They get something completely different, because that's what was actually happening inside when they came to me for the reading. Again, these are intuitive readings. So depending on what they're going through, if you don't want to acknowledge something that's happening for you inside, it still may come out in the tarot reading, because that's what's happening for you in the moment that I'm doing a reading for you. and how you connect the messages to the cards to your own experiences in life is where you're going to gain that insight and perspective. And so I've had readings where the question was about one thing, but then when I went through the reading and I talked about the messages in the reading, they started connecting it to something completely different. And that's fine. I mean, that's sort of sometimes how it goes when you're dealing with the intuitiveness of the readings. But I've never had anyone tell me that it wasn't helpful, or that that it was prying, or that it was too personal. I have had people have very personal readings, which is why also I don't announce the winners. Like, I don't give a name. Oh, I'll say congratulations to the winner of the draw. I don't do the draw on a live broadcast, and that's because I'm preserving the winner's name. Someone may have shown interest and their name is out there, because in order to show interest, or in order to get into the draw, you have to either like or comment on my posts about the draw. Or you can send me an email personally and I will include you in the draw if you don't even want your name out there. But I don't declare the winner out in the open. And that's because sometimes readings are so personal. When you give a reading on a particular topic, sometimes people's questions are completely personal, or what comes out in the reading can be very personal. I mean, I've had people cry because of the insight and perspective that it's given them, and I've never had anyone tell me that they weren't grateful for it, but it was hard to hear, and that doesn't need to be broadcast out. You know, I keep things very confidential in my readings, so I'm not going to then explain who comes to me for readings. Even if it's a free reading that I've offered out, I don't then talk about those readings. Another thing that happens for me is I stay completely objective, as I explained. I'm so objective during my readings that I don't always retain after the reading's done. So I stay so focused on being objective and deliver the messages, and people say that's so helpful, and then when the reading is done and I've moved on to the next person, I am not reflecting any further on that person's scenario or the experience that they've shared with me. So I'm actually sort of unable to then comment or talk about it after, but for the ones that I am able to, I don't. And that's simply because I really want to remain confidential, because readings can be so personal. I mean, we're talking about insight of your own lives, or you know, situations, personal situations that people are going through. I've never had someone come up to me and say, you know, that they want a reading on something that isn't personal. Usually somebody looking for a reading is looking for guidance, or they're looking for insight on something personal. So I completely remain confidential on that, and that includes my draws. It has been suggested to me that I do the draw live so that people can see exactly how I'm doing the draw, and that there is a winner to the draw. But I don't find that that's necessary. I mean, if somebody wants to get involved in the draw, please, by all means. And if you win, I can contact the winner through a private message or through a personal way that they've suggested. And I do my readings over Zoom, usually, remote readings if it's not in person. And so, again, I keep it very personal. Only they get the link to that reading, and they can invite whoever they'd like to join the reading. That's up to them. Or they could share the reading with others. That's up to them. But it's completely with me and me alone. And even with my in-person readings, I don't tend to do them in a public setting. I tend to do them behind closed doors. I'll be giving readings again at the Ninth Vibration on April 23rd, on Saturday, April 23rd. And even in there, even though it's in a store, when someone requests a reading from me, I will take them into a separate room where we close the door and we talk at a table, and I have a setup where I'll have my cards out and we can talk about the cards, and it's very personal and private and intimate, and it's very confidential. So if there's any questions about my readings or about me or about my cards or anything like that, please visit my website, staffordtarot.com. I do even share in my blog the different cards and decks that I have and how I use them and what they mean to me. I recently did a blog entry in the About category about some of the decks that I have, and I will be posting one soon. I think one actually went out today about my decks that I don't even use in readings. I have a lot of personal decks that I use that I don't use in readings for others, but that I use in readings for myself, like certain oracle decks. I have a meditation card deck. I have a suggestional card deck. I have a whole bunch of different oracles that I use, and I use them personally for me. I don't use them in my readings for others, and so there's a blog entry on that as well if anyone's interested. So thank you for those who watched, and thank you for those who will be watching after it's been posted. I really do enjoy doing these live broadcasts, and I am looking forward to more. Again, I will get more structured as the advice that was given to me in my reading tonight. I will be more objective on my approach, more task-oriented. I should create some goals for these live broadcasts, moving forward. What is the main topic and what I want to teach on it, in case I don't get many in-person or instant viewers, like in the moment of it going out live, live viewers, I mean, because the main objective was to give some free readings, show people what it's about, answer any questions that anyone has. And so I'm going to move forward with these live broadcasts. So stay tuned, more to come. Keep watch for them. I do announce them on my website, and I do create events on my Facebook page for them. So if you'd like to join me next time, otherwise, you all take good care, and I look forward to the next one. I look forward to connecting with you all and talking with you soon. Feel free to email me. Again, it's Bryan Stafford, and I can be reached at staffordtarot.com or bryantarotreadings@gmail.com. Take good care, all. Blessed be.